Time, Friday night, when a group of old broads get together to talk about their week in business. Hope you had a good one too.
Hello, it's Tiffy time.
Yay! Friday afternoon. Oh, I won't tell you what my dad calls our Tiffy time. He's actually listened to our podcast, by the way.
Oh, has he? How lovely.
I had some people over here and they're saying, "What are you doing?" I said, "Oh, I'm sitting up to do my podcast this afternoon." And he said, "Oh, this is your..." Yeah, I won't repeat what he said, but it was Tiffy time, yes. It was a more Australian version of Tiffy time.
Thanks, Dad.
So welcome, everyone. I hope you've had a fantastic week. I know we have, although we have had a hectic week. We are, in the 2nd of December, 2022. And that means silly season has started for most of us. So I expect that leading up until Christmas, we're going to be very, very busy with all, what would you call us? Elves.
Elves. We're the Christmas elves.
We're the Christmas elves. We're going to be very, very busy. But I always love this time of year. I do love the frenetic energy. Frenetic? Yeah, that's the right word. The frenetic energy. I love the spirit that most people have. There are a few we could do without, but that's the same with any sorts of things. Hang on a minute, Gail. We need to pause just a moment. You know what it's December 2nd, 2022, and we're so if you're wondering what Gail's laughing at, we just had to pause the video because my dad, who I love dearly, just bought me out a stand for my phone so you're not all looking up my nose as I'm talking to you. That's what she's cracking up at. That's going to stay in, So we're all very, very busy. It's part of all of this, which is why we might be just a little bit silly. It's called the silly season for a reason. Gotcha. Probably not that reason though. So what are we going to talk about this week? And you had some questions, didn't you?
I did.
We were trying to work out.
So through the week, I things like, how do we protect our data? We all have our data in places like Xero, and we have it in places like Google Drive, I guess, and Microsoft. But how do we know it's protected?
So there was something very more specific about it too, wasn't there? Because you were asking me specifically about employee information, and if someone leaves our organisation, do we keep the data for indefinitely, or do we delete it, or what do we do? And that's
how do I delete? So if I have something in the cloud or on Xero or somewhere, how do I delete it without leaving a footprint?
Yeah, and that's a really good question, because we're all told, and quite rightly, that once something is there, it's really, really hard to get rid of. Even if you think you've deleted it, there'll be a shadow of it somewhere. And I think that's probably one of the best things to consider. And that's not saying you shouldn't use cloud services or use the online services, but it's something that you do need to put into your private and your risk management assessments, your privacy policies and your risk management assessments. I believe the answer that we came up with was you actually have to look at your provider and get the privacy policies and data management policies from your provider. Now, they will all have them. They may not necessarily be easy to find. You might need to actually drop them a message and ask them for them. But if you are using a cloud service, you really, really need to be using a reputable cloud service. And you do need to understand what their policies are. So I think it was, I know you went to look at Xero. I think I went to look at Google, wasn't it? And Google's was, unless you specifically request for the data to be deleted, it will be held indefinitely.
And Xero was the same.
But if you ask for the data to be deleted, they will go and scrub the data from their systems for you. Now, that's a pretty standard situation. If you could Google it for me, Gail, what does a GDPR actually stand for? I only ever remember the acronym now, but the GDPR was the new privacy rulings. Oh, I say new, the privacy rulings that Europe's put out 3 or 4 years ago now. Maybe it's a bit longer. I mean, it's all kind of just faded into one. And they've got some really, really specific requirements around the management of data. And those specific requirements have driven a lot of the cloud providers and a lot of the service providers in how they manage data in general and making sure that their policy is very specific. You, as a business owner, you probably need, well, you should have that written into your policies yourself. This is how we manage the data. This is, and even if that policy is, we will manage the data in accordance with our service providers' data management policy. That's totally acceptable policy to have, but you do need to know it, because if someone comes back to you and says, so what is that policy? You need to be able to pull it out and say, here's what the policy is.
So GDPR in Australia is the Australian Privacy Principles, and among other things, they provide rules about transparency, direct marketing and security of personal information. The EU General Data Protection Regulation sets out rules and guidance about how personal information should be treated. I think our rules
the general data. What was it? The general data
protection regulation.
GDPR. Yeah, protection regulation. Yeah.
Yeah.
Now they're pretty strict too. Very, very strict, down to how cookies are managed as well. I don't know. Well, I'm sure you've all noticed that when you visit websites now, it says this cookie uses bytes. And I've only had one drink so far. This site uses cookies, and this is the information these cookies gather. Do you accept this or do you not? That's a direct response to the GDPR requirements, stipulations. I honestly, they drive me a bit batty, but it is what it is. And if you are dealing with Europe at all, if you're going to have anyone from Europe visiting your website, you need to have that sort of thing in place. So that's a general privacy thing. Gail was asking me a very specific privacy thing about employees, subcontractors, and even customers. Does the data exist for time immemorial on a service? Yeah, it does. Does it exist after you delete your service with that provider? I think
it does.
It does.
It does.
Yeah, it
so
does.
we have some pretty strict rules around that. So things like if there is a data breach, or even if there is a suspected data breach, you need to take reasonable steps within 30 days to conduct a data breach assessment. And it must be reported to the Office of the Australian Information Commissioner and any affected individuals as soon as practical. So that's pretty much that's if you suspect it, you don't even need to prove it, or it doesn't need to be proved, which is really interesting when you look back on what's happened with Optus and Medibank and the other big breaches we've had, because they weren't. So I'm not sure at what point they suspected them and at what point they proved them. But these are
right.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's a really tough one. I mean, what do they mean by suspect, and how is it really a 1% chance that this might have happened?
I did a cybercrime with the Australian Bookkeeping Network on Wednesday, which was absolutely fantastic. And the woman that spoke, I can't think what her name was, but she was, Karen LeBrew. So she originally came to speak about e-invoicing and how fantastic this was going to be. But then she came and she spoke about cybercrime. So Karen LeBrew is on the board of Energy Queensland, which is one of the biggest Australian agencies in Australia. So she spoke about how keeping them safe and putting things into place that kept them safe. So one of the things they did was they had 10 board members. They gave them, I can't remember how many emails to look at, but what they needed to do was look at all these emails and work out what was scam and what wasn't. So these people are looking for scam for emails, and out of this, I don't know, maybe 50, 10 of them were scam. No one picked the whole 10. No one. Now they're looking for scam emails and they couldn't pick them. So the rest of us are like really kind of, like that puts the rest of us in a different light because we're not looking for them all the time. So there are, every 7 minutes there's a cybercrime.
Yep.
So $227 million is lost to email compromise.
And what's the class as an email compromise?
So when you send an email to someone and you say to them, I've changed my bank account details, here they are, and we change them without checking, that's an email compromise. But when we send a invoice to someone, then it goes into my server, and then it goes into the email, and then it goes into your server. There's all these points that it can be hacked. So what they're trying to do now is this e-invoicing when it goes from one access to another, and it's limited on what it can be hacked. So there was a really nice guy from...
I'm just looking at the bats up in the sky. They can stay over there and not in our tree. Thank you very much.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay, go on.
So
you've got multiple points of compromise across multiple servers.
And people can access that. So if I send an invoice to you via email, there are several points that it can be interacted, and somewhere in there it can ask you to change the bank account, or it can ask you to change information. And unless you actually look at it and go, no, I know Gail and I know that she wouldn't do that, then we're actually at risk of that happening.
Yep. Yeah, and also don't forget too that spoofing an email address is less easy these days, but it's still possible to be done.
Yep.
It can look like it's coming from you and not be your email address at all, or it can actually come from your email address and not come from you at all.
So one of the guys that spoke to us from the city of Mundaring, and this had happened earlier in the week, he got an email from his boss asking them to pay this supplier really quickly this significant amount of money, and he looked at it and went, oh, I'm not game. I want approval to do that. So he sent an email back to his boss and he never answered. So we're talking like the city of Mandurah, which is a reasonable size town. Yep. Anyway, so he sent it back, never got an answer. So he walked down the hallway, knocked on the door and went, what's this about? And the boss went, I don't know anything about it. So what had happened was they had spoofed the email address, like you said, sent it through, asking for money from a supplier that they knew that they had used, changed the bank account details. But when he'd sent it back to his boss for
it went to a different address because the rough to address is different.
Yeah, but it went to the bottom of his email pile. So it was actually there in his email pile, but it went right to the bottom so that it would take him a while to answer. So how do you like the whole clever thing?
No good.
Yeah, I know.
And it's very clever. It's very, very clever, but oh my God.
Yep, I know.
So what were some of the strategies you were given around that thing? Because there are some really good strategies. Like I love the what do we call it? Personware, walkware.
Yeah, yeah, and a lot of that is that if you send me an invoice and I think it's dodgy or I think it's not right, I ring you and say, hey Charlie, tell me this is right. And that's some of the thing I think we've got a little bit used to accepting what we see in our emails, but it's a 5-minute phone call.
Correct.
And that was one of the biggest things that they said that we could do, was simply, if you get something, don't take it, verify it.
Yeah, I like that one. The other one that I always like is, so, you and I use Xero to begin with, which means that if we send out invoices to someone, they can actually go to Xero and see what they have owing from Xero. They can find something from a previous email. They should have the link somewhere. They can just go to it and have a look and see what's owing, and then check those invoices as well and see what's printed. If there is actually an attachment in the email, yes, you've got to be careful opening it, but double check that what's in the invoice, what's on the actual printed invoice is actually what they're asking you to pay against. That's another way of doing it. I guess the other thing I wanted to sort of point out, because you made a really good point about emails going from, when you send an email, it goes from the sending place, it goes to an email relay, it goes to another couple of gateways to get to you, then it goes to our email server, and then depending on how we're running, I run so mine stay on my server. Some people use it, they download it to their local computer, so then you've got that extra point of compromise as well. So you've got any number of places there that can be compromised, exploited. What people don't realise is that emails are generally sent in the clear, which means they are not encrypted. They are human readable on transmission.
Yes.
And you know how I feel about people sending passwords through the email. And
we don't.
Okay, sometimes you can't help but do that, but there are other ways of doing it. There are other ways of sending passwords that don't go in the clear. And if you can at all avoid it, never ever put a password or a credit card or any personally identifiable information directly into them.
No.
Someone can get it.
So when a business gets hit by cybercrime, the average small business, the loss per small business is $64,000.
Yeah, okay.
So
how do they calculate that? Do you know?
No, I think they've just looked at I guess the average of the $227 million.
That's
and
a possibility. I mean, I'm just trying to think what it would be, because you've got your labour cost, you've got your reputation cost, you've got your rectification cost,
but
you've got legal costs.
It's enough to put most of us out of business, really.
Absolutely. Yeah. Now, I mean, and when they're talking about that 64,000, that is an average per business. So your business might not get hit with that directly, but you've still got loss of earnings because you're taking your time out to address this. You've still got all your labour that you've got to put into this to address it. You've got your communications with your clients to deal with. I mean, it's a horrifying thought.
Very.
Absolutely horrifying thought.
And one of these happens every 7 minutes. That's a scary thought.
Yeah. So let's just talk about some strategies that you as an end user might implement if you get something that looks a little dodgy or you're not sure about. You were talking about people looking for spam emails and not knowing what they are. I'll start with the first thing I do is I look at the sender. I look at the sender's email address. And if it doesn't look right, it normally gets marked as spam. I don't even bother going any further.
No, and I tend to. My first thought when I look at the email address it's come from. If I don't know it or it doesn't look right, it gets deleted.
Yep.
I
What's
think
the other one?
Just ringing, like I know the people that I work with, and I know the people that send me invoices, and I send invoices to. So I think that it's having that conversation where I actually recognize your voice and going, do you know, like, did you send this? Especially if it's something that's not expected.
Yep. The other one is don't open it. If you don't know the sender, if it's not familiar to you, don't open attachments. Not a Word document, not a PDF, not an Excel spreadsheet, not a HTML document, not an image. Don't open attachments unless you are absolutely positive that this person sent you what they say they sent you. The next one is have a look at the links within the email, and if it says something along the lines of log into your account now and confirm your details, and it gives you a link, most providers will not do that. Most providers will tell you to go to your account and log in. They won't give you a link. You need to go to their website manually to do it. So even if you've got a link in an email, just go to their website and do it. Go open a browser, go and do it manually. Make sure that you are on the website you think you are on. Phishing scams is part of how compromise occurs. So phishing means that they send out an email that looks pretty cool. Yeah, it looks legit, and you click on a link and you go and log in, and they immediately get your username, password, and then they'll ask you to confirm your personal identity. What was your date of birth? When were you born? What's your mother's maiden name? Those sorts of things are I'm going to say they're the simple ones because they're the most common. They're also the easiest ones for us to fall for because we will get an email. We are normally busy and we'll go, yeah, I'll just do that now and be done with it. Your best bet is to just, if it says you think your bank account's been compromised, put it to the side of your bank.
Yeah.
Just pick up the phone and ring someone.
I had a message.
I'll guarantee that you have
this week about the I've lost my phone, Mum. I need money to buy a new phone. And I looked at the message and I thought, oh my God, which child are you?
Right.
So.
Right, because that's actually a really good one. So let's talk about that one and talk about how else that one actually plays out. Facebook Messenger is a big one for that. Someone's account will get duplicated.
Yeah.
So what someone will do, they talk about, oh, my account was hacked. So the accounts are not hacked. What someone does is they come along and they duplicate your account. They steal your profile picture. They create an account with your name and your profile picture and then connect to your friends list. So if your friends list is public, that is how they will find out who your friends are. They will connect with those people and send out friend requests. Most people will accept the friends request thinking, I'm sure we were already friends, but oh, whatever, I'll just say yes. Then they'll start up a messenger conversation with them. Hello, Mum.
Hey, Mum. Mum's fed me. Because I look like I'm about to fade away.
And then they'll start up a messenger conversation and they'll tell you something like, look, I'm stuck, I've got no money, I need to get home and I need to catch a train and my credit card's not working, I've got no cash on me, can you send me some money? And for all you know is you're talking to your friend, but you're not really, you're talking to this duplicate account. So if you get a friend request from someone that you think you've already connected with, go and check your friends list. Because I'll almost guarantee that there's a 99% chance that you are already friends with that person and you are still friends with that person and this is a scam. So that's a good one. So you said the text messages, they can take that through any number of ways to do it. The other one that I get really frustrated at and roll my eyes at is the surveys or the your superhero name is the first letter of your first name and the second letter of your middle name, and the so they go out and people start responding to them. And whilst that information on its own is not useful, when you combine that with enough of those sorts of things, they can get a real profile on who you are, and they will know. Well, they won't know, but they'll have a good idea of what you use as your standard security questions, standard security answers, any passphrases you might use to get through the things. Because let's face it, most of us will use a pet's name, mum's maiden name, dad's name, where your parents were born, as some form of security check to get through things. And when you consider the amount of data that we share on things like Facebook and Twitter, and they're just those really simple things like, you know, what's your favorite glass of wine? What's your favorite type of dog? What would you do here? That's all information that gets milled and checked and collated. And all of a sudden, they know so much more about you than you think they could ever know.
Yeah.
Because over time, you've been providing them information. So don't respond to those sorts of things, please. Please.
Don't play the games.
But don't play their games.
No.
So yeah, so I mean, that was a fascinating conversation you and I had, because it came out of left field for me, actually. How do we know? I'm like, what do you mean? And I was trying to get from you exactly the context, because well, the answer is you don't really, but you have to rely on other people's policies and procedures. And it's a matter of, you mitigate your risk by handing that risk off to someone else.
But I think we need to start asking the question. And I think we need to, like, what happens if your data gets breached? What do you do?
Yeah, what are your policies?
How will I know? Will you let me know if your data gets breached?
Yeah, and look, honestly, if you go to people like Google and Microsoft and Zoho and Xero and Sasu and all of those, they've got their policies and procedures there. It is all there. You just have to troll through their information to find it.
You do have to. But I believe
you've got to know to look for it.
I believe Microsoft, Zoho, and Google their security is really quite up there.
It is.
Yep.
Yeah. I mean, it's up there as up there can be. I always use the statement: it doesn't matter how good a mousetrap you build, there's always going to be a smarter mouse.
And there is. The amount of money that is being thrown at hacking and is huge. Absolutely huge.
Yes. Yeah. Well, it's because the money they make from it can be absolutely huge too. So and also, I guess now's a really good time to start mentioning, given that we're coming into the holidays and the holiday period, watch the number of attempts on your websites, on your accounts go up. Kids are going to go on holidays. Kids are going to start getting bored. Because I run hosting services, so I see it. I see the alerts come through. I see the box go through. And I call them scritch kiddies. That's all they are. They're just kids. Oh, they're just kids. They're people who get bored and just want to do something. And when people say, well, what do they get out of it? Well, for a lot of these people, they just get the pleasure of knowing they can do it. Why do they do it? Because they can.
I believe Energy Queensland, who Karen is on the board with, 40,000 hits per day.
Yep, actually that's a lot. Now I would think that's a little low, to be honest, given who they are and what they do. That's a lot of hits,
that's
right?
a massive amount of hits. It's a massive amount of money that people are putting in to do this.
Well, I mean, is that hacking attempts or is that just hits in general?
No, these were hacking attempts.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. So the other thing that they can do is hire by the hour server space to run their hacking attempts from, which is why it's really hard to pin them down, because they'll go and get server space somewhere, run up their scripts, let them run for the hour, hammer a couple of sites. They start to get picked up, they pull them down, they move on to the next set of services to do the same thing again. It's yeah, I got to say, as much as I love this time of year, and I really do love this time of year, this is my favourite time of year. It's also kind of the worst time of year because I do see the hacking attempts go up. I do see
majorly
the exploits go up, which is why, you know what I'm like about now. We must make sure the updates are through. We must make sure that things are up to date. Don't share passwords via email. Use one of the password managers to share a card with me. Yeah, because that's where you're going to go. That's where you'll get done. But that all said, there is only so much you can do to protect yourself. The other thing you need to have is your threat and risk assessments done and your policies and procedures around if this does happen, what do we do? How do we manage this?
Yep. Agreed. Yep. And policies and procedures are the most important. No, not the most important, but they are important, really important to have in place.
I think, I mean, you take the view, this will happen. When this happens, this is what we will do.
Yes.
Yep. And, I mean, let's work on the Pareto principle. You spend 80% of your time to address something that might have a 20% probability of happening. I think that's high too. It might never happen, but it's like you've got to manage.
It is very much so.
So it sounds like you had a good conversation with this girl, or this girl, not lady. Sorry.
It really was a fantastic webinar, and thank you to Leanne Lewis and Australian Bookkeeping Network for putting it on for us.
Fantastic. Kind of a little jealous. It sounds like something I would have been fascinated in.
I did. I loved it. Really enjoyed it. 5 million notes and.
Oh, great stuff. So what else have we? What else? So sorry, I'm stuttering here. What else were you doing this week? I think you said you had a STP webinar that you were doing.
I did one this morning about how difficult why is payroll so difficult? Oh, dear me.
I know why payroll is so difficult, and well, I don't know why, but I won't have payroll, so that's good.
Do you know, like, it's just simple things like Western Australia has its own industrial relation system. So unless you work for a PTY Ltd company, you're on our system. But the whole thing is just really all over the place, and it's like there's no matching for it. It just makes it so, to me, and long service leave is managed by every different state that you live in. Workers' compensation is managed by every state that you live in. Maternity leave and all the other stuff. Like, so you might be employed by a New South Wales company, but depending on where you live and your award and all the rest of it depends on what you're paid.
Yes. Yeah. Yes.
So yeah.
Yeah, payroll is one of those ones of and then that's one thing, and then you've got to worry about your tax and your super and
that's next module. This is
Although
industrial relations.
because when I started doing all of this, super was paid manually. We had to sit down and work out our super every month and make sure, and then I think we deposited it every quarter. So we had, I put the money away into a provisions account, and then every quarter I'd sit down and make sure I paid it out. And then, like I said, it's really different now. But I had several different superannuation providers. Each of my employees would nominate their super provider.
Yeah.
So I had several different super providers, and each one did it differently. Everyone did it differently. It's just so hard.
And now you have stapled super funds and all the other stuff that goes with it. So yeah, so I did that this morning. That was interesting. But yeah.
Excellent. Wow, that sounds honestly, I'm fascinated. I'd love to hear what you're learning. Later, not now.
Yeah, no, not today.
Oh dear. So I don't know. You can see the sky behind me.
Oh, it's stunning. Stunningly beautiful as always.
Isn't it gorgeous?
Mm.
Oh, it really is beautiful. And we were just watching the bats go overhead. At least they're not up in the tree squawking tonight yet.
Covering my neck.
Oh no, they're just little fruit bats. little fruit.
I have when we had a property north of Perth for quite a while when we were little, and my dad was still alive, and we occasionally used to get a bat in the house. So the bats were this big, and they had to go sideways to get through the doorways. And I remember like being curled up asleep one night.
Were you little when this happened?
Yes, I was little, and my dad coming through and pouncing on my bed and moving my bed between the wall away, and I kind of went down the hole, and my dad said, protecting us from these bats that were this big. It is one of my childhood memories. And my nan was so mum's mum used to come and stay with us quite often, and this bat's flying through, and she's holding her hair and she's squealing, and I didn't quite know why, but it was the thought of getting the bat caught in her hair that she was worried about. So anyway, so yeah, we had these bats that were this big and going here.
So my big one at the moment is the baby cat and toads that hatched around here, and they're only like this big.
Oh,
but when I walk across the ground out there, the ground moves.
Oh.
Put on my big boots. Plop, plop, plop.
Squish, squish, squish. Yeah.
Yeah, they're real quick though. It's really hard to catch them. But yeah, I've had my experience of cane toads now. I'd never seen a cane toad.
I've never seen one. We don't have them.
No, they're endemic up here now.
Yeah. The ibis.
So they've come quite a long way south.
Okay. So there was a thing the other day saying about the ibis and the cane toad.
Mm.
Yeah, they pick them up and they throw them around in their beak and frighten them, and then throw them. And as they throw them, they kind of like get rid of all their poison, and then they eat them.
So that's one of the things that we have to watch with the dog, is that he doesn't go out and grab one. That's done a really good job at training him to leave them alone. But apparently, if you grab one and you squeeze it, it makes the poison pump faster, which is a euphoria. Makes them high.
What?
So they want to do it more. It makes them high, so they do it more to get more of it.
Yeah. Let's stop growing weed and eat cane toads.
Oh, yuck. They're disgusting creatures.
Yeah.
That's all right. Dettol, apparently. Dettol.
Dettol.
Spray Dettol on them.
Okay.
So I walk around the caravan. I've got to get a spray bottle again and more Dettol. I walk around the van and spray this Dettol around the van.
Where's your sunset gone to?
Oh, it's gone there.
I know, but it just goes so quickly.
It does, doesn't it? Oh dear. I'm just trying to think if we've got much else to say. I mean, I've had such a week.
It's been busy.
But there's nothing. It's all very busy. It's great though. Certainly not complaining. Oh, I know what I was going to tell you about. I was listening to a podcast the other day. Strange that. Wasn't our podcast. It was someone else's. I was listening to a podcast the other day and they had a product manager and an engineer on, and they were talking about, you know, the businesses they were running and the things that they've learned over time. And the engineer said it was rather an interesting experience for him because he went into this a new job and they stuck a product manager label on him. And called him a product manager, not an engineer. And he said it was such a culture change for him, a culture shock for him, because as an engineer, you are focused on the how of things. How do I do this? How does this work? How am I going to deliver? As a product manager, you're focused on the why and the what.
Ooh.
And that got me to, and that really got me to thinking a lot about, you know, the things that I've been doing, the things where I've been working. And yeah, I'm good at the how. I can do the how. That's not a problem. But most people who deal with me will notice that when they say, can I do this? Or, yeah, how would I do this? I'll go, well, what are you trying to do and why are you trying to do it? Because once I understand that, I can tell you the how. But the how might change depending on what it is you're trying to do and why it is you're trying to do it.
Yeah.
I just found that a fascinating sort of eye-opener for me. So that's something that we should think about as we move forward as business owners. Is, you know, it's not just how do we do this, but why are we doing it and what are we doing? Or what are we doing and why are we doing it? Maybe in that order might be better. It's a fascinating kind of mindset change.
Change in thinking, isn't it?
It really, really is. Yeah, yeah. But kind of, like I said, it really helped me with the oh, that's what I do.
Oh, that's how I do it.
Oh, that's what I do. That was fascinating. Anyway, mate, I think we've done a good chat this week.
We have.
I hope people have enjoyed that. Hope you enjoyed my sunset. It's all gone now. See? Oh, no, not quite.
I know. Your sun, I know it's still light here and the sun's about to fall down and tell me it's time to knock off because I can't see my screens anymore.
See, now this is a good thing. But I hope everyone's had a great week. Cheers for tippy time.
Cheers, my darling.
I've only drunk one this week. And we will catch you all in probably a fortnight, I think. Yes, in a fortnight. It won't be Christmas, but it will be close to Christmas. So maybe we need to have our Christmas.
And I have a major planning weekend happening next week, which is really exciting.
How exciting. Well, you can tell us all about it then.
I will.
Have a good week. Have a good week, guys, and take care, Gail.
Take care, Charlie. Talk to you soon.
And that brings us to the end of Tiffy Time for the week. We hope you've enjoyed the episode and we hope you join us next week. See you later, guys.